Hi, folks. I'm Eagle Spitz on another evening of culture, an evening of culture of sorts. This is number two. And with me today, I've got Andy Smithyman. And
Hello.
Hello, Andy. How you doing, mate?
I'm good. It's nice to be here, buddy.
Good. And I recently bought a copy of Paradox. I think that's your latest novel, isn't it?
Yeah, it's my latest one.
Have you got a copy in front of you to show the audience?
It's in good old Blue Peter sort of essence. There it is. Yeah, complete with little illustrations and stuff like that.
Brilliant. So that's not your first book, though, is it?
No, I cut my teeth. Well, I've always been writing, mate. It's like as a little kid, because I was always like an introvert. I struggled with speaking, got nervous and all that kind of stuff. So I always wrote, and then cut my teeth trying to get some of that writing out in different ways, and then moved into writing nonfiction. Okay. So analysing historic movements, trying to pick up on hidden storylines. So move away from how we typically tell stories, which is zoning in on the heroic figure.
Yeah.
Which is usually a particular definition of a hero. And so try and move away from that and look at the mundane and the hidden stories. And then that led me into realizing that I wanted to move away from that academic sort of side.
Okay,
and speak normal.
Good. Because I mean, the good thing about sort of moving away from writing academic books is people can afford to buy fiction
and hopefully know what you're talking about.
Yeah. You mentioned that about the historical thing. I mean, have you read Christopher Hill and stuff like that?
Yeah, like The World Turned Upside Down.
Yeah,
that's an awesome book, man. That is like, if anyone wants to get a reinterpretation of the Civil War and all that kind of stuff, and just how radical some of those conversations were and how relevant it is for today. It's just awesome.
Well, I was fortunate because although most of my qualifications are in psychiatric nursing and therapist and stuff, I needed a break and went off and did a degree in literature, art and thought in Liverpool.
Mate, I never knew that. Hats off to you on that one.
So that was great. But in the library, because it was a very eclectic degree, they'd got quite a big Gerard Winstanley section. So I used to enjoy reading that and other sort of diggers and leveler stuff. So yeah, Christopher Hill, one of my men.
It's not that I read it every year, but I regularly delve back into that book. Just the way he pulls out history, but also relates it to present day. And there's something just radically exciting about the diggers in their craziness and weirdness. I get a lot of inspiration from that. And where I live, there's a hill very close by that is related to the diggers. And some really cool stuff happened where they reimagined how to work as society and share resources and commerce and stuff like that. And now it's one of the richest hills in England.
All right. So where are you? What part of the country are you?
In a completely contradictory way this is showing my contradiction of how I write. I'm based in leafy Surrey.
Okay. So how many novels have you written? Is this your first Paradox?
Yeah, Paradox is my first delve into published novels. So I've written stuff in the past that have gone into like little fanzines or self-printed sort of magazines type stuff. And then I've ghost wrote for a couple of people as well in different ways. But this is my first delve into a novel. And, and it's a big one as well. It's like, but it was a great experiment, because it's definitely the way I want to go. I appreciated being able to, because paradox is just a reimagine. Best way to describe paradox is imagine a Christmas Carol, Dickens' A Christmas Carol, sharing a dance with Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, and Stephen King barging in and breaking up the dance. It's kind of it's my reimagination of A Christmas Carol.
And that, I mean, and that feel comes into the novel as well. I mean, I really felt, I really felt with Dickens in there. What else I felt was Stephen King's Dark Tower series.
Yeah. I delved into, so when I was writing, it's taken 4 years to write this thing. So 2 years to write, 1 year to, in a broad brushstroke, 1 year to do a re-edit and figure out how to get this book out in a different way than how I've normally done books. And then the 4th year was doing it, type thing. But during that process, I was head into Stephen King and head into Neil Gaiman.
I mean, I read the Dark Tower series. It's the only Stephen King stuff I ever read, and absolutely thought it was brilliant, apart from the ending. But it's like it took me about 25 years to read it, because they kept coming out at different stages. Oh, that's it. So
Stephen King's an interesting writer, because what I appreciate about King, and I nowhere matched his technique of doing it, but what I tried to emulate is he has a way of taking something that is considered normal or mundane and just freaking the bejesus out of you. So twisting a clown into Pennywise, or the Mr. Mercedes is about, like, every time you see an ice cream van now, you're thinking, your head switches to potentially that's a mass killer, So I just love how he can throw something that is an everyday image and it hooks into you. So every time you see it, you can't help but think about the story. And why I wanted to use that technique was paradox is my argument that the Dickensian landscape is still here today. The issues of poverty, injustice, and all that kind of stuff. And we can chat about that if you want, but I wanted to find hooks that every time you walk down the street and you saw a poor door law, or if you saw certain images, it would bring you back to the thing of, actually, we're living in some crazy times at the moment, and we need to reimagine society.
Oh, that's cool. And would you like to? Are you going to do as a reading, a little reading?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Drop that on you quick, didn't I?
Oh, you did. So, if you're familiar with A Christmas Carol, it's kind of centered around Scrooge.
Yeah.
And this is a modern retelling of, well, it's a modern reimagination of it. And so this character is a modern version of Scrooge, and he's a writer. And so I'll just read a couple of...
this guy already, so that's good. I've got as far as being introduced by that character and stuff. So yeah, that's good.
So chapter 1, The Confession. My name is Samuel Abrahams, and this is my confession. I am a fake, a well-seasoned imitation who's forgotten the signal to walk away from the con. To the onlooker, I'm the champion for social justice, a writer who gives voice to the downtrodden and forgotten. But in reality, I'm the nightmare to any author's dream, with my words are for sale to the pimp and my selfish greed. I shamefully live off the spoils from telling tales about poverty and pain, while the heroes in my book struggle to find enough food to get through the day. But to think my words are just about money does this living curse and injustice. The book covers that hang up on my wall reveal the devastating truth. I want my life to mean something. You see, in my early 30s, I tried my hand at writing, and the first novel did what any virgin author would dream of achieving. It became a bestseller. And against all the odds, the manuscript landed in the right hands at the right time, and I swore blind I would keep true to myself. But the party of self-importance was too hard to pass up, and the indulgent celebration lasted a year before the public turned off the lights. My next two books flopped. Agents passed me around like a hand-me-down jumper, and the failure had an upside, though, a reality check. The wilderness years gave me a chance to find my moral roots again, a writer for the people, not for selfish gain. But what I didn't count on was how much I hated that dusty landscape. And there was one thing on my mind: a comeback. And the fourth book outshone my virgin work. Reviewers loved how the desert plains of rejection strengthened my voice, and I never corrected them. Why should I? Because in the way they were right. It brought out the real me, but I hated the person who had shown up. If the secret behind how I landed the story ever came out, my world would come crashing down like a house of cards. And so to ease the conscience, my mind constructed a room down a long, dark corridor of forgotten shame. I locked up the memory, threw away the key. I never wanted to face the temptation to step into that God-forsaken place. Because within those shadows lived a darkness that could never see the light. And the plan worked for a time, until someone found the key and opened the door. And all it took was an envelope delivered during breakfast. I recognized the handwriting straight away. It should have gone into the bin just like all the other times, but the untamed beast of curiosity opened its blood-stained mouth as I pulled out the two items. The stench of rotten memories gushed from the beast's stomach as I pushed the unread letter to one side. It was the second item that seized me in its teeth. Every part of me was held transfixed to the postcard's phasmail illustration. That image had a backstory. My secret. I touched the card, checking it was real. My finger traced the outline of the picture. It was a scene from A Christmas Carol, harmless on the surface, but looks can be deceiving. The dark lines within that image painted a scene of something I had worked hard to forget. And already I could feel its ink weaving its way down the corridor of my mind. The thick, sludgy liquid of guilt seeped into every crack and crevice of my defensive wall. It was looking for an opening, relishing the opportunity to expose the darkest part of my illegitimate success. I watched in horror as liquid fingers holding a key slowly emerged from the pool of ink. My mind screamed out for mercy, but the pitiful cry served only as enjoyment for the dripping, torturous hand. It paused for a few seconds, letting the realization of the moment sink in. There was no such thing as a secret, just a delay of the truth. and now it was time to face its judgment call.
Awesome. Brilliant. The other thing I notice about your book is that you're a very well-read person. Each chapter you start with a quote from some literary masterpiece or something. So are you? Are my assumptions correct?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't be that pompous, but yeah, I love books, and yeah, there's a lot of me in this book. I'm not Samuel Abrahams, but there's a lot of me in Samuel Abrahams and all that kind of stuff. And there's a scene in the book where there's this little kid who has an opportunity to star on a school production of A Christmas Carol as Tiny Tim, and he gets nervous, and then he bumbles his lines by swearing on stage, to the shock of all the parents, and he runs away. And that's exactly what happened to me, you know. And,
Brilliant.
and I really struggled with just getting words out. And I also was just this kid who all of a sudden got faced with just having a face full of acne. And so I just hid myself away. Right. And that's how I got into things like Dickens and stuff like that, because just bizarre, and C.S. Lewis and Tolkien, because I just would hide in a corner of the school and just dig out books and start delving into that. And ever since then, that's kind of just continued. Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah, because I mean, I was going through your book, and each chapter, I see you got a quote by some author, and yeah, brilliant. I've read, yeah, awesome stuff. Yeah, I've read that. That's great. Yeah. Oh, I've never read any of those. I want to read some of that. So, I mean, that also inspires people to read some other stuff, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But where this is Punk for the Homeless, and one of the things which we pride ourselves on is being very DIY in what we do. And the way you brought this book out has been a bit of a challenge to the normal way of publishing books.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, when my copy arrived, it got a really lovely handwritten note and inscription inside, and it was also tied up with string, which I thought was beautiful. But it's like a personal touch there, but also a very DIY touch, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it's like, because you introduced me to that whole kind of DIY culture when I was a kid, you know, and
not guilty, folks. Well, I don't know.
And it kind of, you know, it lingered with me. And the publishing world, the best way I can describe it, it's like the king with no clothes on. It's like the system that we're wrapped up in now as a creator is that you have to create something that's just dirt cheap in the most unethical ways possible, and just sell your soul to an advertising machine that just creates the relationship between you and the reader as just a commodity, you know, type thing. And we're believing that this thing is working great, but actually it's just this king with a fat arse with a boil on its arse, and it's naked. It's like it's crumbling. And I wanted to figure out a way of, is it possible to create something that isn't about mass distribution, isn't about trying to find the cheapest way possible, but about creating something that is of beauty, of worth, that redefines values, that are not in monetary terms, that also creates a connection where you as an author and the reader can connect in a different way. Can it be produced like that? Can it be distributed like that? And importantly, can it be promoted like that as well? And so I set up a publishing house to play around with it, and I wanted to experiment on my own book first. So Paradox was my first venture into it, and some of it worked, some of it didn't, and I learned from it. And now the publishing house is open for other projects now. But yeah, so the way the book is created is the paper's ethically sourced. The you know, the front, you can't tell on the screen, but the front cover, the silk fabric on this is great, you know, but it's really hard to do, you know. So and then the way it gets posted out is as ethical as possible, even with how it's posted and who you use. And then touring, instead of, in the past, how I used to do stuff is you would be booked into big venues, do a book reading, and then you'd sit at a table and you'd have a line of people and you'd just do a quick scribble and forget their names after 10 seconds. And I wanted to do something different, which was like, let's just do a house tour. And so for a year, I just traveled up and down the country and just go into people's homes and have, like, around a dining room table or coffee table, we'd have drinks and nibbles, and I would do a reading, just like how Dickens would, a dramatic reading. And then just in amongst 6-8 people, we would just have a conversation about the book and about the process. And out of it, the connection I have now with readers is radically different to 5 years ago with other books, because there's a personal connection, and it's radically shaped how I then approached my writing going forward and the projects that I'm doing now. So it's, yeah, it was hard work, and sometimes didn't cover all the costs, but it's definitely the way to go with adaptation. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we have to tweak what we do as we go along, don't we?
Yeah.
Right, I must have some more questions for you.
Have you got a list of questions there?
I did. Yeah, only a short one, folks.
Mate,
Scroll down
I've never known you to be so prepared.
No. It's. I thought I had to be this morning because I'm talking to somebody very clever. I don't want to be sort of tripping up at all. Have you got another bit of a reading without destroying a book for us? No, I meant without sort of revealing a plot, not not putting us off for good.
Yeah, can you read some more without trashing your book? Well, I'll tell you what, I'll finish the rest of chapter 1 because that was halfway through.
Oh, okay, cool. It's gripping stuff, folks. I'll tell you, I love it. The way me and Rachel, the wife, have been reading it, and yeah, I put it down really.
So this is straight after where we stopped off before.
Okay.
This is him going into his mind. The door opened. Inside the room, only darkness. This place had been off limits for me, decorated from floor to ceiling in tormenting shame. But I still felt the tug to step inside. Curiouser. Was this how Alice fell down the rabbit hole? 1 step, 2, pause. Indecision. My left hand rubbed up against the wall. The velvet touch was familiar. I lingered in the darkness, trying to recall why I had such a strong sense of déjà vu. A nervous chill ran down my skin. Something lingered within the shadows, calling me, urging me to step further inside. Under my tentative steps, I could feel the sodden carpet of ink. Small bubbles of air popped with every move. There was a damp smell lingering in the air. My secret room had fallen upon hard times. Through squinted eyes, I tried to get my bearings. And at first, I thought I was in a hall, but then felt the gentle incline of the floor. In the shadows, I could see the outlines of chairs, row upon row, and next to them, a walkway leading to a stage. A theatre? The words left my lips quieter than a whisper. Confusion stopped me shouting. Fear softened my voice. This place was sacred, a perverted form of holiness that would kill anyone who dared stand up against it. Whatever curiosity dragged me in had now drowned away. I wanted to leave, but where was the door? I spun around. Who's there? The deafening silence held my feet to the floor, but I knew I wasn't alone. Out of nowhere, from everywhere, a slow, wheezing breath echoed around the room. In, out, in, out. I could feel unseen eyes staring right back at me from the shadows. Its hidden gaze was scrutinizing every part of my body, double checking that it was really me. The wheezing breath intensified as an invisible hand pushed me into the chair. The worn-out fabric welcomed me with a loving embrace. There was a part of me that wanted to fall deeper into its arms. Another part feared what would come next. What are you doing here? The drawn-out male voice brought back every childhood nightmare of the shadow in the closet. It was neither friend nor foe, gentle nor angry, an unknown tone waiting to show its teeth. Answer me! Why are you here? Like some twisted version of Dorothy, wishing there was no place like home, I clicked the heels of my mind, begging this horror show to end. All I wanted was to be back home at my kitchen table holding a coffee cup of safety. I closed my eyes as tight as I could, picturing everything I had considered mundane. The fridge, a chair, a broken kettle, an overpriced toaster. Everything around slowed down. The wheezing faded away. I was alone. Silence. My nose twitched with the aroma of fresh ground coffee beans. I was back home, but nothing felt normal. In front of me was the postcard, my finger still touching the outline of that image. It had taken me somewhere dark. I needed answers, but from where? One place. The coffee cup remained untouched. Before turning the handle of the front door, I looked back towards the kitchen table. Next to the card was the unread letter from the woman I'd worked hard to forget. I knew it was tempting fate to leave it there. Moments later, the kitchen bin welcomed a new tenant. Because there are some memories that should never be unlocked.
Oh, brilliant stuff. I mean, I was really surprised with how good your book is, man. So,
thanks, buddy. Thank you.
That was really good. I mean, I'm impressed. So thanks for being on the show.
Oh, mate, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I'm so glad that could link up to just everything you're doing, buddy. It's awesome.
have you got any last words before I kill you? No, I mean, before last words for anybody listening or watching us?
Yeah, wow, on the spot.
Mm.
I
didn't even write that down, mate.
Yeah, if you take what I'm going to reflect it back onto myself, so more of a challenge from myself, and if anyone connects to it, great. But I'm really challenged that in the times that we're in, the importance of just creativity and our voice, and not being pushed to be commodified and silenced. And there's something very beautiful about just finding our creative voice and articulating it, because art, in however way we describe art, and not like just the pictures on a gallery, but just who we are. The beauty of art is it's kind of like a mirror and also a picture. Art creates a mirror where we can actually see the reality of what is ourselves. So it identifies the incompleteness, it identifies the contradictions of who we are, and it brings a bit of authenticity to us. But it also is a picture, and a crazy picture where it smashes the frame through which we view the world. And that's really important, because instead of this narrow gaze, art enables us to see the margins, the marginalized, the hidden, the mundane. And it then helps us reimagine a different world. And it puts it in a way that is not just theoretical. We live it, we create this new world. And I'm living with that at the moment, of the importance of pursuing that, and the importance of keep on swimming against the tide, and articulating stuff that is authentic, that is vulnerable, that is honest, that doesn't hold back, but also acknowledges how we haven't got it all together, you know. So yeah, that's what I'm feeling at the moment.
Okay. Well, thanks for being on, man. It's been a good time, and thanks for watching in, viewers. That's cool. Well, so I'll say goodbye to the audience. Bye bye now, and I'm going to stay on and speak to Andrew for a second.
Thanks. Bye bye.